Okay, so here is homework 2 in this Perspective Matters unit, and this is called percent change. So again, percent change going off those percents. So let's consider something. At a local community college, we increased from 5,200 to 5,400 students over last year. Sounds pretty good. By what percent did the enrollment increase? So what percent did it increase from last year? So what we first want to do is say, all right, what was the total increase in enrollment? So we had 5,200 and now we have 5,400. So if I look at it like that, that gives me negative 200. But if I absolute value it, or just looking at it, I know that we've increased by 200 students. I just don't know if that's a really good percentage or a bad, or how to kind of rate that. So percent change does that value over the total that you're improving from, increasing from, or whatnot. So the number that goes on the bottom of this fraction is we've increased 200 out of 5,200 because originally we had 5,200 students and now we've gone up 200. So what percent did it increase over that original amount? So when I throw that in my calculator, and I did not do it by hand, wouldn't expect you to, I get 0.03846. So 2, approximately 3.9% increase in enrollment. That's pretty good. Almost a 4% increase. So what I'm talking about here is this idea of percent change. So to start, we have this idea of absolute change. That was the 200. So that was the ending quantity, which was that 5,400, minus the 5,200, which told us that we had an increase of 200. Either way, we're going to do these absolute value bars. So absolute change, you're subtracting two numbers with the same unit, and then we're taking the absolute value. So this could either be increasing or decreasing, but we had a change in 200 students. Now, when we're asking about a percent increase or decrease, we're a relative change. Now we actually want to put it over a denominator, and the denominator is what you started with or what the old quantity was. So what we did up here was the 200, which was the change, over the original or starting amount. So if the ending quantity was the year 1996 and the starting quantity was the year 1980, on the bottom is the 1980. Think of what you've increased from or what you've decreased from. Think of it in terms of the old. So a couple ways to think about this, either absolute change over your starting quantity, ending minus starting, etc. Now in my top example, it asked for percent. So at the end, you can change it over to percent change. You'll have a decimal, multiply it by 100, and then that'll give you the percent. And think of the starting quantity as the base, which is the denominator. All right, pause a minute if you need to write. And we're going to try out some questions here. Okay, so I've got 2 questions. Go ahead and pause and then try them yourself and then come back to what I'm doing and see if it makes sense. Okay, so assuming you've had a chance to look at this, we've got value of a car. So up here, the order isn't as important, but we need to figure out what the starting quantity was. The car dropped from last year. So the total change, the change in price, or the absolute change, is going to be the difference in the 2 car prices. Okay, and I'm going to punch that in, 15,3 minus 13,7, and get an absolute change, an absolute change of 1,600. Now the question is, what's the base or the starting quantity? Think of it in years. What was last year's price? It dropped from 1,530 to 1,370. So over here, it's going to be out of 1,530, 1,300. and then it asks us for a percent. So I come up with a percentage of 0.10458. Move that to a percent, about 10.46, 10.5% decrease in value that year. Okay, if you didn't do example 2, pause now. Otherwise, stay with me. Okay, so when we're going through this one, you did a flat tax. So when you think about how that's going to affect businesses, you have your smaller amount and then you have your bigger amount. It's probably going to affect a smaller company, a smaller amount, a lot more, but how more, we'll see. So if you're trying to figure out how this fits into starting, minus, and whatnot, this is the change. Whatever they made last year, now they make 1,000 less of those annual profits because of the tax. So for both of these, that 1,000 is the absolute change. So I'm going to put that at the top. Then we need to figure out what the starting quantity was. And that was how much they made before. So they made 500,000, assuming all of that stays the same. So that gives me, when I punch that in, watch your zeros, that gives me a decimal 0.002. Now, when I put that into percentage form, move it over, it's 0.2%. When I come over here, we're going to take that same 1,000, but this time it's going to be out of 5 million. And when we run that math, it's 0.0002. Watch the zeros. That's 0.02%. So it does affect the small business a little bit more when we do a flat tax versus this larger corporation. Right? Pause if you need to. I'm going to clear and then move down.